Well, I'm definitely going to be rooting for Is It Phoenix, as my heart tells me bird lawyers are friends. So I love to see Legend Shredder in action.
Let's check out our bracket one more time to refresh everybody on what has happened here today in our top eight. It's been an amazing day of coverage, and we are in the finals. The last match happens now. Ryan Condon versus Toni Ramos Pascual. Quintorius Combo versus Is It Phoenix. The last match of the finals. We're going to crown a champion. Take it away.
All right, Hayu, this is it. This is what we played all weekend for, getting down to the last possible match of everything. And this is a good one. I mean, these last couple of matches went a little both ways, right? We saw some good draws, we saw bad draws, we saw each player have to kind of play out of a couple of tough situations. So I don't know what we can expect here in this third one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know it's going to be exciting. We know that both of these decks are capable of putting together some pretty insane turns, and really watching them not only try to do their own thing, but also try to stop their opponent doing their thing has been so scintillating. And I love this matchup. Can't wait to see who wins.
Toni did end up on the play here, which is good, gives at least a little bit of an edge for him in this matchup where we've seen he's not necessarily favored in the opening game. So we'll see how that helps him here.
Right, Legend Shredder gets to come down on turn 2 of the play. And, I think Tony's expecting this by now, the Leyline Binding in response.
Yeah, now there's a Picklock Prankster, but not a lot of other action here. And this could be exactly the situation that Ryan wants, right? Still have an active Leyline, can start fetching for lands. So this is kind of the setup that Ryan needs here.
Yeah, Ryan has all of this ramp ability. The Beanstalk Giant is in hand. That's going to get used this turn. Leyline Binding doesn't really want to have that Spark Double in hand, of course, but wants to find some kind of combo piece after this.
Yeah, I feel like Tony's plan here is just dig. Right?
Right, and we were saying, Toni doesn't have a lot in hand right now, but Picklock Prankster, that could be anything. Consider that could be anything.
Yeah, that's kind of the way that deck's played so far, and we've seen it this weekend. It's just every card could be the next answer, right? The next card could be the Treasure Cruise or whatever you need just to pull out of the hole.
Right, and once you start getting those Treasure Cruises going, they just do not stop. And it feels so sweet. It's so much fun to draw cards on Arena, especially with those animations, cards flying off the top. Couldn't love it more.
All right, so we're going to cast a Consider here and see what we find. Just a pathway.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an interesting thing in Phoenix where you want to find specific things. So lands tend to kind of fall to the sideline in terms of priority, but you also don't really want to get into a position where you're stuck on mana.
Yeah, and this feels a little bit tough here with the disruption because you kind of want that right now without another real solid way to interact.
Right, and I think Toni was really hoping for an untapped land off the opt so that he could hold up this Jawari disruption for Quintorius. Treasure Cruise is, I hate to call Treasure Cruise a consolation prize, but
I think there's a lot of decks that would take that as a consolation prize.
Yeah, that's fair. 4 lightning axes for Toni.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get rid of this Phoenix here. So that's 1 down that Ryan has to worry about later.
Not a Quintorius for Ryan.
Definitely not, and this would have been the window for it, for sure.
Oh, and Ryan didn't have the untapped land for the Quintorius either. So just, this is the thing with this deck, like every so often, or even quite often, just you are going to not be able to do the things you want to do on time. And Ryan didn't have the Quintorius anyway, but if he had the Quintorius, it would have been devastating.
Yeah, the tap lands are just a little unfortunate sometimes, but necessary for playing that style of deck.
Probably doesn't need all 4 lightning axes.
All right, has access to 6 mana if they want it. Decides to just go ahead and cast this Karuga. Does get hit with the Jawari disruption. I don't think it can be countered.
No, that red border. Oh, and wow, Toni caught it in time.
Ooh, that was close.
Oh. Yeah, you can see a little raise of the eyebrows there from Toni. Got away with that one.
It's all right. I think we've all done that at some point on arena. Just forgot what the opponent's lands were. Got at least gives you a nice little warning.
Right. Yeah, I think it is also, it's the end of a long weekend. These players have been playing for many, many hours now. I'm sure in Toni playing from Spain, it's going to be the middle of the night there. So, it's extremely understandable that these things happen, but good on Toni for catching that in time.
Oh, I feel it. We had the opposite problem being on the West Coast, so I had to be up at like 7 in the morning. So like it's been a day.
You and me both, my friend.
All right, let's see what Ryan's got going on here. Gonna have the 7th mana here, so every option is available.
We saw Ryan use that herd migration in the last match, and we also saw Ryan do this exact thing of trying to get Beanstalk Giants out first, drain Toni of resources, and hope that Toni is going to be not in a position to answer the herd migration.
Yep, looks like it's going to be a double lightning axe. Oh, actually, no, you have a lightning axe, and yeah, you can go ahead and get the extra damage in there with the impulse.
Right, and we were kind of joking for lightning axes, but they've kind of served Toni well, even in these pre-board games.
Yep, you got plenty of cards in the yard to get a cheap treasure cruise here.
Nice, clean Delve 7, pay 1.
All right, we did find a Phoenix.
Okay. Ryan's still at 17, so there's a long way to go yet for Toni, and no Shredder means no way of getting that Phoenix in the graveyard just yet. Does Toni just keep going here with the odds?
Probably. And see if maybe you could just find something else. Oh, or it just says, I got nothing else happening anyway. Here's 4 damage.
Yeah, do your worst, Ryan.
Oh, and there's a Quintorius right off the top.
Yeah, Ryan says, okay. My worst? I don't think you can handle my worst.
Yeah, it already has 7 mana, has the option for an 8th, so there's no way anything would happen to this spell here.
Yeah, pre-board as well. Just, Ryan, no shade for just taking the time, making double sure $10,000 on the line for this match of Magic. I mean, if you're sitting at home playing Arena while watching the broadcast, just imagine, that your next ladder opponent and you are playing for $10,000.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of pressure. All right, so the first spark double goes off, copies Quintorius, non-legendary, so now we have 2 copies on the battlefield. Looks like we had another spark double, so we're going to have 3 Quintorius, putting 2 triggers on the stack here. Yeah, and that's going to do it.
Yeah, there's nothing that Toni can do from this position, and he's going to be thinking about those post-board games yet again.
Yeah, but again, like we've kept saying, this is the game that Ryan has to win. Like, supremely favored, you got to put this one away. Give yourself a chance by just winning either of the next 2.
Right, and Toni was on the front foot after the first match, now finding himself on the back foot. But this competitor is a survivor. We saw him in the semifinals going down to, I think, 1 life, or maybe, just a few points of life total against David Inglis, and managing to bring it back. And, I would never, ever count out this competitor. Just plays so well when his back is against the wall.
Yeah, and we saw that earlier, even in that first match, just really battling back, being really patient, had a really solid sideboard plan. And I think that was the biggest thing, of just having tons of answers, kind of almost abandoning the initial plan of going all in on Phoenix and saying, okay, I'll get the Phoenixes later, right? Let's just make sure you don't do anything till like turn 8 or 9, and then we'll try to win.
Right, and Toni really managed to put together this kind of ragtag bunch, shall we say, of picklock pranksters and elemental tokens, and ultimately managed to get there in that first match. excited to see whether Toni can bring it back. But I mean, Ryan just has to win one more.
Yeah, and I think for Toni, this is a sideboard plan that worked really well. So you're going to see no deviations here. The exact same thing's going to come in. And to Toni's credit, got very unlucky in the last game of that last match, just not being able to find any mana to pull out, keeping that one lander. And Ryan seems pretty content with the same sideboard plan as well. So we're seeing no deviation from either player here going into this next game, of this third match.
Right, and I really like this plan from Ryan, bringing in a copy of Bedeck Bedazzle. Answers a Ledger Shredder early on if it's early enough, but importantly also can take out a young Pyromancer. And, Ryan adapting to the changing situation, knowing kind of that there might be more threats to answer that are in the smaller range. So wanting to bring that extra piece of removal.
This is an interesting hand for Ryan. There's a lot of expensive cards, but you do have a migration. You do have Tanuki. Looks like opting to keep it.
And Toni, by the way, kept that one lander again. Didn't even hesitate.
Paid off quickly, though. got to land on that first card and found red mana as well here. So looks like everything's coming up roses.
Yeah, this is kind of what Toni was hoping for in that last match with the one land keep, and this time it's paying off. So, it's not always going to punish you. Credit to Toni for trusting the maths there on that particular one.
Yep, just says, I just want all the blue mana. Like, not even bothering with red mana here. Just this hand is all blue. We need all of it.
It makes sense.
Right, going ahead and pitching the herd migration there to get a mountain.
Yeah, I love this game. Both players are trying to do what their deck does. Ryan has so many ramp effects. The two Tanukis, they can go at instant speed, so you don't have to tap out in your turn. Has a Gyruda, has a Carnosaur. No Cavern of Souls just yet, I believe, unless that's one hiding out in hand for Ryan.
I think that was a tri-land of some kind.
Let's see. So we'll find out pretty soon what that was. But I had to say, I like Toni's position here. A handful of cantrips. Aether Gust is so sweet. Plays around Cavern of Souls, plays around these uncounterable effects. And Picklock Prancer ready to refill the hand as well.
Yeah, I got to say, if you just started playing Magic in the last couple of years and you like playing red or green spells, be glad you didn't have to play against Aether Gust.
By the way, Aether Gust is one of my favorite cards of all time.
I knew
you may have guessed
that.
Of course. Oh, there was just this period of time where they kept putting Can't Be Counted on every green creature, and
that's true.
We needed Aether Gust.
Or they were protection from blue. That was the other thing. All right, so it looks like we're going to go ahead and pitch a Tanuki to go put a land into play. And this is pretty good for Toni here. You've got a Spell Pierce up. You have access to Mystical Dispute possibly if you need it. I mean, kind of has everything here. Just not a ton of pressure, but just enough. All right, looks like Dispute's going to counter a Clever Impersonator here. And another tri-land from Ryan, setting up to have land 6 next turn. And that is a Cavern of Souls, actually.
Oh, it is a Cavern of Souls. All right. Okay.
Now, we know it only matters so much because of Aether Gust, but it will get to be played the following turn as well.
For sure. Okay, so things are getting interesting here. I mean, Toni manages to keep this Ledger Shredder alive, which is very nice.
Yeah, and Shredder is getting
back for long enough.
Yeah, Shredder's getting one bigger every turn here, so this is speeding up the clock, even if it's just a little bit. All right, there's 7.
7, 3-turn clock here for Ryan Condon. They need to find something in order to lock this one up. I mean, this is so close.
All right, so let's say we get this Phoenix in the yard next turn. That's 6, 7, 10. I'm going to assume an extra 1 on the Shredder. So that's only 11. Still needs to find probably another Phoenix to end the game next turn. So Ryan, as of now, still has 2 draw steps, or at least has 1 more draw step and has this turn.
Right, and Ryan's thinking, okay, I have a Cavanosaurus, I can name Dinosaur, play Carnosaur. But that is weak to the 1 copy of Aethergus. Ryan doesn't know Toni has it in hand, but does know that it's in the sideboard. So naming Kraken here is so heads up, because Gyruda is not a red or green spell and cannot be Aethergusted. And that Mystical Dispute now just looking really sad in Toni's hand.
Yeah, really heads up play there and saying, okay, maybe I find something here that's going to help.
Oh, but Gyruda misses.
Oh no, on both sides, got nothing?
It certainly didn't hit a Carnosaur. I don't know if it hit something from Toni's side.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. And Ryan made the right decision as well. I mean, that Gyruda play just really thought through all the possible iterations of what Toni could have. This is the backdoor way to get a Carnosaur, but that's the problem with Gyruda. You're only seeing 4 cards deep.
Yeah, you just get to copy Garuda again. You get to go for it. Spin the wheel again.
Oh, and that's no Carnosaur yet again.
Yeah, and just got a Picklock Prankster for all that trouble.
Oh, and I bet Toni is wiping a bead of sweat off his brow.
Oh, no joke. Like, if I'm Ryan, I'm sick right now.
And Brazen Borrower, a great draw for Toni. We've seen how much Toni values holding up these disruption spells. Brazen Borrower does it for 2 mana, which is way cheaper than Otawara. So I think Toni, having survived that kind of long night of the soul of that previous turn, it really is just kind of putting the pedal to the metal here.
Yeah, that's so rough. I mean, not even another clone to try to spin the wheel again. Just like nothing. And I actually didn't even get anything really from Toni. Just got a Picklock Prankster.
Right. I mean, if it at least hitting something like a Ledger Shredder gives you options.
Yeah, this is tough.
Wow.
But, upside. Picklock Prankster is a blocker. Garuda's still a 6/6 that probably needs to be dealt with over a couple turns. So we'll see how much time Ryan actually has.
Right, and Toni has these 2 Phoenixes in hand, can't really get them into the graveyard at this point. I mean, one of them for sure, it makes sense that he can get into the graveyard with the Shredder, but it's going to be tough to get both of them in. And bouncing Picklock Prankster that your opponent controls so it can be targeted, but it's your creature. Oh, the value.
Oh, yeah. But I think this is still okay, right? You're going to get in for 10 or 11 damage here. You're at 20. You get hit for 6. It's not really that big of a deal.
Spell Pierce on your own Brazen Borrower. Pay for it. That's the 3rd spell. That's 2 Arc-like Phoenixes.
Oh, there's another Phoenix in the yard. Oh, yeah, that's it.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, Toni. That love to see that. Spell Pierce your own spell in order to make the 3rd instant or sorcery to Quan.
Yeah, I lost track. I thought there was just 1 Phoenix in the yard there. Yeah, with 2, definitely. So, yeah, exciting situation there. And again, evening it up, and we are going into a 3rd and final game here of this 3rd match.
We had the deciding match. We already thought this is going to be a treat, and now we're having the deciding game of the deciding match. Could it be any closer than this, Daquan?
No, this is exactly what you want, right? Win or lose, you at least say, hey, I took it all the way down to the wire, right? Like you gave everything you had. This is all you can hope for, really.
Right, and we were talking about the one times. I mean, if there's any time to use up your one time, this is it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you just knock the deck, ask the card gods, hey, one time, friend, please.
Those are both nice hands.
Yeah, this is a good start for both sides. So everyone's going to kind of get to do what they want to do here. Let's see how it ends up.
Wow, if Toni pulls this back after going a game down again in this finals, I mean, what an incredible achievement.
Yeah, double ley line real strong here too. So Both sides kind of have their defensive answers, so we may be looking at a fairly long game here.
Oh, Crackling Drake.
All right, we do get to see a Ledger Shredder on 2, which is generally what Toni wants, but as this has happened many times in these games, it is met by a ley line early.
Well, and I think Toni, A, is expecting that, and B, it's not the end of the world, because using a ley line there means that Ryan isn't doing something else, like not buffing up the life total, not getting more lands in hand. And Ryan really does need to be spending these early turns making sure that they have access to all the mana they need. And I think Toni would be very pleased to see Karuga in hand as opposed to something like a Fertile Footsteps.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. It was interesting, too, that Ryan decided to go ahead, just buy Karuga, leave mana for something else next turn. And I thought really here might actually decide to use the Herd Migration, but maybe we're back on the plan of just wanting to cast a Herd Migration.
Right, and Ryan has to use Leyline Binding to deal with everything. This side-in of this Crackling Drake from Toni, I think, is really sweet. He hadn't been siding it before. We saw that in the graphics earlier on. But I think he's just saying, I got to present more threats. I've got to make sure that you only have very few answers. And because of that, I'm going to make sure that I have as many threats that you have to deal with as possible.
Yeah, and I think this is where we start to hit that kind of strange middle stage of this match that we saw the last couple where, all right, Toni doesn't really want to commit too much mana because you got to leave up these defensive spells to bounce stuff in the middle of a combo, being able to counter one of these clone effects. So we're going to get to see how we're kind of back what you've mentioned earlier throughout the weekend, right? And what we've seen a lot is who's going to blink first, right? In a way. And both sides just have to leave mana and options open.
Right, but when you're in that game, that's where things really, really start to favor this Phoenix deck. Toni passes with 3 mana, and with Toni's 3 mana represents Spell Pierce, Mystical Dispute, even, some of these adventure spells. And for Ryan, if they have 3 mana, it represents putting a land on the battlefield.
Yep, and here comes Karuga to try to get 2 cards. All right, not bad cards per se, but not outstanding.
Okay, and Toni has quite a few options. I think Picklock Prankster, Free the Fae, we're pretty likely to see, but Toni, maybe even just thinking about getting Brazen Borrower down and start putting the pressure on. And I love this player's ability to switch gears when necessary.
Yeah, it feels like that's probably the answer here, right? Either going for Brazen Borrower or just using Picklock Prankster. I mean, I don't think we're going to really bounce Karuga here, I wouldn't imagine.
No, I think bouncing Karuga doesn't seem like a great prospect. Toni's probably not that worried about his life total just yet. Crackling Drake can always trade with Karuga down the line if necessary. But Toni, I think, just really trying to figure out how much pressure can I put on, how many turns is that? 3 power, 19 life, that's 7 turns, not 6. All of these thoughts, these numbers will be going through Toni's head, and ultimately, I think, ending up with a good choice here using that Picklock Prankster.
Yeah, it's a little tough too, if I'm in Toni's seat, trying to decide, do I need to be leaving 2, 3, or 4 mana up, depending on, what we think the opponent's going to be doing, right?
Right.
Right, was able to cantrip into another land, so still at 4 mana here.
Okay, it doesn't play out the Crackling Drake. That's, I think, very kind of emblematic of the way that Toni's been playing and the way that Toni's been winning these games. Patience, patience, patience is the name of the game.
Oh, yeah, in this situation, if I'm in Toni's seat, I'd be paranoid to just be tapped down. And I would be upset to die with 2 counters in my hand.
Yeah, that is the nightmare scenario for sure.
Right, we're going to go get some land here with this Beanstalk Giant.
And Toni's looking at this Mystical Dispute, this Spell Pierce. I mean, we talked about it earlier. The value of those types of counter spells go way, way down later on in the game when your opponent is getting to 7, 8, 9, 10 lands on the battlefield.
All right, here we go. Going to try to cast a Spark Double, and now Toni has to decide if it's worth stopping this card.
Yeah, I think he can at least start with opt. There's not really, I think, any harm in having a look at the top of the deck.
He says, but what if I just bounce your Karuga and then the Spark Double just dies? Is that good enough for me?
Yeah, bouncing Karuga is pretty interesting. I mean, it does something about the clock, right? Which is a problem for Toni.
For sure.
And I mean, we joke a lot in Magic about what the meaning of tempo is. This is the meaning of tempo right here.
Right. And now you can play this Crackling Drake and still leave up Spell Pierce if necessary, because it's really the only real strong play, but still can use the Mystical Dispute against the other clone copies.
Right. And drawing that untapped land from Crackling Drake, very sweet as well. Double counter available. Gyruda, I believe, can be countered because I think Ryan named Dinosaur for the Cavern of Souls that's on the battlefield. So Ryan has a lot of different choices to make. And if you're playing this tempo game, this Crackling Drake is the exact threat you want. It's big, it's in the air, it's difficult to kill, it's difficult to block.
It looks like we might be using Imposter to copy a Crackling Drake. I think was kind of a consideration that's being given here.
I kind of love that, actually.
Yeah, and this plays around disputes unless they want to use both of them.
Oh, it's so tough here. You don't really want to be going down too much on mana, but also the disputes are getting worse, and I don't know that Toni can afford for this impersonator to come in as a copy of the Drake, or even really as a copy of Leyline Binding.
Yeah, I was about to say it might even be a Leyline. It may not even actually be a Drake.
Right, but unfortunately, the Shapeshifter is a creature, even though it can copy a non-creature permanent. So Toni had to use both Mystical Disputes. That means that Spell Pierce is the last line of defense for Toni.
Now, a good thing that happened there, though, is you did add some extra spells to the yard that could allow this turn. There were some situations where it could have allowed this turn into a 2-turn clock.
Right. Oh, that's Treasure
Oh,
Cruise.
that still might. Well, we're actually gonna. Well, yeah, because they still count exiled cards with the Drake.
Right. That's why Crackling Drake is so powerful. You can delve away your spells. You can get Leyline of the Voided or Rest in Peace or whatever it is, and it's still going to be a massive threat. Huge draw for Toni, and finding more cantrips exactly where he wants to be.
Yeah, all the mana you need, so that's not a concern. And now you just can go for as much damage as you can get in here.
Oh, negate.
That's a big draw too.
Huge a draw for Toni. I think Daquan, I mean, Toni's in such a good position now.
Yeah, the only way this goes even remotely poorly is probably if Ryan somehow gets to the play of copying the Drake or removing the Drake here.
There is still a clever impersonator in hand for Ryan. That can copy a Leyline Binding. Toni has a negate which doesn't counter it, and a spell pierce which doesn't counter it, and a disruption which doesn't counter it.
Yeah, he does have an untapped land in hand potentially. So could still possibly get 2 spells here with the impersonator and the Karuga.
Okay, let's see what Ryan does. I mean, Ryan is not out of it yet. This is so exciting.
Yeah, this is a crazy finish here.
Toni can't really do anything about this impersonator, and Toni was so close to getting lethal just next turn.
Yeah, I think you kind of just have to let this happen, though, right?
I think so. I mean, you can copy. Now, there's also a question here, right, for Ryan. Do you copy the Crackling Drake, or do you copy a Leyline Binding?
I'm probably copying Leyline. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely seems right. Some of us might be greedy and say, okay, I would quite like to draw a card, but Karuga's coming down. That can't be counted anyway. Yep. Ryan gets to refill the hand. Toni's only at 11.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, Ryan is only at 7, and you're going to get to flash in this Brazen Borrower here and possibly be really close to activating the land.
This is so tight. I cannot believe that it is coming down to this for the title of arena champion and the $10,000 extra prize money.
Yeah, I think sometimes when people see the idea of like, oh, there's going to be these combo-ish decks going against each other, these games are going to be super fast. Like several of these games in this matchup have gone 8, 9, 10 games or turns. So these are not necessarily super fast games. You do have to play around the cards your opponent has for sure.
Right. And it just also, the caliber of these players, it's not like your regular ladder match from arena. They know all the ins and outs of everything that could possibly happen in this scenario. They've prepared for it. This is the match of perhaps their Magic career so far. And both of these players really, I think, putting up a marvelous performance.
Yeah, it looks like a Quintorius was found by Ryan, but we know that there's a negate, so it's probably not going to factor in here.
Yeah, and Treasure Cruise, that's just whenever this deck needs to refill, feels like their hand is a little bit anemic, Treasure Cruise just comes right along and fixes that problem.
Yeah, now it's just what happens here, which way do things go in this next turn, because this is going to be real close. This is basically one turn very likely here.
Oh, that's Rafine's tower. That doesn't help Ryan. Okay, so Ryan has some options. Could try to resolve Quintorius. That's not good against a negate and against the counter spells that Toni has. And we saw Ryan, when making these decisions, knows very well what could be in store.
So here's the question. As bad as Karuga went last time, is Karuga just the play here?
I don't know. I mean, it's so tough. It's definitely the safer spell in terms of getting it down on the battlefield. But Cavern of Souls isn't on Kraken this time, so maybe Ryan says, okay, I'm just going to take the risk here. I can't actually afford to play around this negate. And, it's not good news for Ryan.
Yeah, and Toni looks like he's just weighing to make sure, can something happen if I just cast this negate here?
Toni's heart must be thumping. There's the negate. Oh, the little nod from Ryan. You can see it on their face for sure.
Yeah, and I think the only thing Toni might have been looking at is there's still 4 lands up. If Ryan had played another untapped land, maybe tries to play another one, but there's still the disruption in hand. Would have been fine, I think.
Right, and that's the problem with these Discover decks. You can't really play counter magic of your own to help protect your combo, unlike many other combo decks that have blue in them.
All right, and it looks like we found an Arc-Light Phoenix just for bonus here, I guess, in case there is actually another ley line. Getting in there, that is going to get it done, and Toni Pasquale is our winner of Arena Championship 5. Wow.
Wow, what an incredible match there played by Toni Pasquale. Incredible series of 3 matches really played by both players. But Daquan, I admire him so much. The patience, the ability to just always hold back, always have something up to protect, playing the tempo control game perfectly, and a very deserving winner here for Toni.
Yeah, I was sweating some of those draws on both sides throughout the final set of 3. Just every draw just felt so critical from both sides. And that's what you want at the highest level, right? Both players playing around each other's card, each draw being exciting. Like, we couldn't have asked for anything better for a finals set of 3.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's been incredible. There's been some incredible gameplay really this whole weekend. And, before we started, Frank Carson said, is this Quintorius combo deck the breakout deck of the event? Well, nearly. Nearly did it.
So everybody, just stick with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come right back.
Hey, everybody. What an amazing finals here at Arena Championship 5. Very, very exciting stuff. Thank you so much to everybody who's been watching us all weekend long. Welcome to the End Step. I'm Maria Bertholdi, your host for the weekend. And we just had some incredible games